What if I told you that this winter could be the most dangerous one in decades, and most people have no idea what's heading their way? Right now, meteorologists are looking at weather patterns that haven't been seen in over 50 years. The forecasts for 2025 aren't just predicting cold weather, they're warning about something much more frightening. We're talking about brutal deep freezes that will slam into parts of the United States and Canada that normally get off easy during winter months. Places that haven't seen temperatures this low since their grandparents were kids. But here's what's really keeping emergency experts awake at night. The vast majority of families are completely unprepared for what's coming. And I'm not talking about just being a little chilly. I'm talking about life-threatening situations where you could find yourself trapped in your own home without power, without heat, and without any way to keep your family warm. This isn't some doomsday fantasy, this is what actually happens when extreme weather meets our fragile power grid. I've been digging deep into FEMA guidelines, government emergency resources, and the latest winter predictions from top meteorologists. What I discovered made my blood run cold, and it should make yours too. The risk of catastrophic cold events this winter is sky high, but hardly anyone is talking about it. The media is busy with other stories while families across the country remain dangerously unprepared for what could be heading their way in just a few short weeks. That's exactly why I'm sharing these 9 FEMA-approved survival items that could literally save your life this winter. These aren't your typical grab a flashlight and some batteries suggestions that everyone already knows about. I'm talking about the overlooked essentials that emergency responders actually use. The items that separate families who survive winter disasters from those who become tragic news stories. Before we jump into these life-saving items, I want to know what you're seeing in your area. Are stores already running out of winter supplies? Have you noticed prices shooting up on heating equipment or emergency gear? Share your experiences in the comments because these early warning signs could help other viewers prepare before it's too late. Let's start with the first item that could mean the difference between life and death during a winter power outage. Emergency thermal blankets, your secret weapon against deadly cold. Picture this scenario. It's 2 a.m. on a February night, and suddenly your house goes completely dark. The heater stops humming. Within minutes, you can feel the cold starting to creep through your walls like an invisible enemy. Most people think their regular blankets will keep them warm enough, but they're dead wrong. Heat doesn't just slowly drift away from your body, it rushes out at an alarming speed, especially when temperatures drop below freezing. Your cozy home can transform into a deadly icebox faster than you ever imagined. Heat escapes through every crack, every window, every surface, leaving you and your family vulnerable to hypothermia right inside your own house. This is where most people make a fatal mistake. They underestimate how quickly the cold can become dangerous. That's exactly why FEMA puts emergency thermal blankets at the top of their winter survival list. Now you've probably seen these things before. Those weird shiny silver sheets that crinkle like aluminum foil and look like something from a space movie. Most people take one look at them and think they're just cheap gimmicks. But that's where they're completely wrong. These incredible blankets are engineered with NASA-level technology to reflect up to 90% of your body heat straight back to you. Think about that for a second. 90% of the heat that would normally escape into the cold air gets bounced right back to keep you warm. They don't create heat like an electric blanket would. Instead, they capture the warmth your body is already making and trap it around you like a personal heat shield. This is the exact same technology that keeps astronauts alive in the freezing vacuum of space, that helps mountain climbers survive on Everest, and that emergency rescue teams rely on when they're pulling people out of life-threatening situations. If this technology is trusted to keep people alive in the most extreme conditions on Earth and beyond, don't you think it might be worth having in your home? Let me tell you about something that happened during the devastating Texas freeze of 2021 that perfectly shows why these blankets are so crucial. While thousands of families were suffering in powerless homes, one family found themselves in an even worse situation, stranded in their car overnight, when the roads became impassable. The temperature had dropped to dangerous levels below zero, their car's heater had died, and they had no way to get help. But this family had done one smart thing months earlier. They had tucked a few thermal blankets into their glove compartment, just in case. As the night got colder and more dangerous, they wrapped these blankets around themselves and their children. It wasn't comfortable, and it certainly wasn't warm. But those $5 blankets kept that entire family alive through one of the most brutal nights in Texas history. The difference between having these blankets and not having them literally meant the difference between life and death. Without them, that story could have ended very differently. But here's something most people don't realize. Not all thermal blankets will save your life. The super cheap ones you might find at discount stores often tear apart right when you need them most. FEMA specifically recommends investing in high-quality emergency blankets or heavy-duty survival sleeping bags that use the same reflective technology but are built to last through real emergencies. These life-saving blankets are incredibly small and lightweight. You can easily store them in your car, stuff them in a closet, or keep them under your bed where they'll be ready at a moment's notice. Think of them as the best insurance policy you'll ever buy. When your furnace fails at 3 a.m. during a blizzard and the temperature in your house starts dropping toward dangerous levels, do you really want to bet your family's safety on regular blankets and hope for the best? Or would you rather have something that was specifically designed to keep soldiers and Arctic explorers alive in conditions far harsher than anything you'll face in your living room? The choice should be obvious. A backup heating source, because our power grid is more fragile than you think. Now here's a terrifying thought that most people never consider until it's too late. Imagine you're sleeping peacefully when a massive snowstorm rolls through your area. Suddenly everything goes quiet. That familiar hum of your furnace stops. The warm air that was flowing through your vents just disappears. Your house fills with an eerie, bone-chilling silence that makes your heart skip a beat. Within the first hour, you can actually feel the cold creeping through your walls like a living thing. By the second hour, your breath starts forming little clouds inside your own home. By morning, your house has transformed into something that feels more like a walk-in freezer than a place where humans are supposed to live. This isn't just uncomfortable. This is when people start dying. This exact scenario is why FEMA emergency experts lose sleep at night. They know something that most families refuse to accept: you absolutely cannot put all your trust in a single heating system. When ice storms snap power lines like twigs, when furnaces break down at the worst possible moment, or when natural gas supplies get cut off during emergencies, your main heating system becomes completely useless. That's when you need what could literally be your lifeline, a reliable backup heating source. We're talking about propane heaters, kerosene heaters, or properly ventilated wood stoves that can keep your family alive when everything else fails. This isn't about staying comfortable or maintaining your normal lifestyle. This is about pure survival when the power grid abandons you during the most dangerous time of year. Let me tell you about something that happened during the devastating 2013 ice storm in Ontario, Canada, that perfectly shows why this preparation matters so much. Hundreds of thousands of homes lost power for more than a week. Think about that mindset, an entire week without heat in the middle of a brutal Canadian winter. The families who had invested in backup propane heaters were able to stay in their homes, keep warm, and wait out the storm safely. But the families who hadn't prepared, they found themselves packed into overcrowded emergency shelters, sleeping on cots with hundreds of strangers, while their pipes burst back home and turned their houses into frozen, water-damaged disasters that would take months and thousands of dollars to repair. The difference between these two groups wasn't luck, wasn't income level, and wasn't location. The only difference was that some families had prepared for the reality that our power grid can fail when we need it most, while others had blindly trusted that the lights would always stay on. But here's where things get really dangerous, and this is something that kills people every single winter. Backup heating can turn deadly if you don't know what you're doing. Every year we hear heartbreaking stories of families who were just trying to stay warm but made fatal mistakes. They brought barbecue grills inside their houses, they used gas stoves as heaters, or they fired up unventilated heaters in closed rooms. These families didn't die from the cold, they died from carbon monoxide poisoning while trying to save themselves. That's exactly why FEMA requires that any alternative heating source must be paired with a working carbon monoxide detector. Proper ventilation isn't optional. It's the difference between life and death. Being warm doesn't matter if you never wake up again. Think of a backup heater the same way you think about a fire extinguisher. You might not touch it for months, maybe even years. But when disaster strikes and you desperately need it, nothing else in the world can take its place. A small, properly ventilated propane heater stored safely with a few fuel canisters can keep your entire family warm, calm, and alive while the storm rages outside and other families are facing life-threatening situations. Don't make the mistake of waiting until the first blizzard warning to start shopping for backup heat. By then the stores will be cleaned out and prices will skyrocket. Carbon monoxide detectors, your only defense against the silent killer. When your main heating system fails and the temperature in your house starts dropping toward dangerous levels, something scary happens to people's judgment. Panic sets in, and desperate people make deadly decisions. They drag their outdoor grills into living rooms, thinking they can safely burn charcoal indoors. They fire up old propane heaters in closed bedrooms without checking if they're working properly. They run generators in their garages with just the door cracked open, convinced they're being careful enough. What they don't realize is that they've just invited a silent killer into their homes. Carbon monoxide gas creeps in without making a sound, without any smell, without any taste that might warn you something is wrong. It quietly fills up your lungs and puts you into a sleep that you'll never wake up from. This is exactly why FEMA insists that every single home must have a carbon monoxide detector with battery backup before winter arrives. It's not a suggestion, it's a matter of life and death. Here's a reality check that should terrify you. During the Texas power crisis of 2021, hundreds of people ended up rushed to emergency rooms. But they weren't suffering from hypothermia or frostbite, they were dying from carbon monoxide poisoning. Families were burning charcoal briquettes inside their houses, running cars in closed garages to stay warm, or using damaged heaters that were leaking deadly gas into their living spaces. Many of these families thought they were being smart and careful. They weren't reckless people, they were just regular folks trying to keep their children warm during a crisis. But good intentions don't protect you from invisible gas that can kill you in your sleep. Some of these families didn't survive their attempts to stay warm, and the most tragic part is that every single one of these deaths could have been prevented by a simple device that costs less than $50. A carbon monoxide detector is literally your first, last, and only line of defense against this silent killer. When the air in your home turns deadly, this little device screams out a piercing alarm that cuts through the silence and gives you those precious few minutes that could save your entire family's life. Whether that means immediately opening every window in your house, shutting off a faulty heater that's leaking poison into your air, or grabbing your children and getting everyone out of the house as fast as possible. And here's something crucial that most people forget: you absolutely must get a detector with battery backup. When the power goes out during a storm, your regular plug-in detector becomes completely useless, just like a flashlight with dead batteries. You need protection that works even when everything else fails. Here's a truth that should shock you: most homes either don't have a carbon monoxide detector at all, or they have one sitting on the wall with dead batteries that hasn't worked in months. Don't be one of these families whose story ends in tragedy because they thought it couldn't happen to them. A $10 piece of plastic mounted on your wall could literally be the only reason your family wakes up alive tomorrow morning. This isn't just being smart, this is basic survival. Think about it this way: you wouldn't go camping and build a fire without making sure you had some way to detect dangerous smoke, right? So why would you face the most dangerous winter weather in decades without protecting yourself against an invisible gas that kills more people during storm seasons than almost any other threat? Preparation isn't something you can put off until later, it's essential right now. A carbon monoxide detector is one of the simplest, cheapest, and most effective ways to keep your family safe during the coldest, most dangerous nights of the year. Don't wait until you're reading news stories about families who didn't make it through the storm. Get this protection today.